With the newest trailer for My Hero Academia Season 4 dropping late last week, the hype for more HeroAca is steadily building up once again. So I thought this would be a great time to do a little experiment and try to guess where Season 4 is going to end relative to the manga. And I will be keeping this video spoiler free for those who haven't read the manga yet. This isn't going to be as complex as my analysis videos typically are, but I still think it's a fun exercise in understanding arc structures and emotional timing. The only concept you really need to understand for this video is that of adaptation rate. I already did an entire video on the adaptation rate of Shonen Jump anime a while back, so be sure to check that out when you're done here if you want more specifics. For now, all you need to understand is that the golden ratio for adapting a traditional Shonen Jump action-adventure manga to anime format is 2 chapters to 1 episode. This gets the anime closest to the same general pacing that its manga source material has, and HeroAca is the perfect example of this, with Season 2 having that exact ratio when you take out that season's 1 filler episode. This is the optimal adaptation rate if you want to match the pacing of the manga. Any faster than that and the story feels like it's rushing through plot points too quickly for them to have any emotional resonance, such as with D. Greyman Hallow from a few years ago with its lightning fast 3.3 to 1 rate. Any slower and the story starts to drag, such as with Season 1 of HeroAca sitting at 1.62 to 1, thus giving the series the sense of having a slower start than it ought to have had. Of course, adaptation rate isn't the only thing to consider when judging how far an anime should go, especially now that the seasonal structure seems to be the order of the day, and we've mostly moved past the run the anime forever mindset of stuff like Bleach and Naruto. Mostly. With a seasonal structure in mind, you also have to pick a satisfying endpoint for each season. This is why Season 1 of HeroAca ended with the USJ arc rather than halfway through the sports festival. Cutting off right before or right in the middle of a big tournament wouldn't be emotionally satisfying, so they needed to save some of that material for Season 2. With all that in mind, let's take a look at the broad layout of upcoming arcs. First is the Shie Hasaikai arc, the longest arc of HeroAca to date, sitting at 41 chapters in length, and one of the most thematically and emotionally varied so far. However, the end of Season 3 had already begun adapting the intro to this arc as a sort of teaser for Season 4, using the first 3 chapters that introduced the Big 3, as well as a previously skipped over chapter about twice, for the last 2 episodes of that season. This leaves us with 38 chapters of Shie Hasaikai left to adapt, which is still a pretty sizable amount. That being said, this still isn't an insanely long arc by Shonen Jump standards. For comparison, the Chunin exams in Naruto lasted for 81 chapters, making it twice as long as Shie Hasaikai. I highly doubt that this arc will take up the entirety of Season 4, which has already been announced as a 2-core season. Even if we stick to the low end with 24 episodes, adapting only Shie Hasaikai would give us a rate of 1.58 to 1, which is even slower than the first season. Considering that most of HeroAca so far has been focused on a quality product instead of stretching out the material as long as possible, this is one of the least likely scenarios for Season 4, especially considering that Shie Hasaikai is a fan favorite arc. Season 4 is going to have to adapt at least 1 or 2 more arcs for it to maintain a proper sense of pacing, so let's take a look at some of those arcs. Immediately following Shie Hasaikai, we have the Remedial Courses arc, where Bakugo and Todoroki are going for their second attempt at provisional hero licenses. It's only 6 chapters long, but has enough meat in it to make it feel like more than just a side story. After that, we have the School Festival arc, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. Class 1A is prepping for the school festival, while a new villain is plotting something that involves UA. This arc lasts for 15 chapters, which is around the average length for HeroAca arcs at this point. Considering all of this, I've come up with 3 potential ending points for Season 4. The first option, which I consider to be the least likely but is still a possibility, is that Season 4 adapts up through the end of the Remedial Courses arc. This would cover 44 chapters of the manga, giving it an adaptation rate of 1.83 to 1. While it's not the ideal rate of 2 to 1, it's much closer than if they had just adapted HeroAca. However, this scenario also presents another problem. While Remedial Courses is still a good arc, it doesn't have anywhere close to as much thematic or emotional weight as HeroAca. Additionally, the last chapter of this arc is this weird story about Aoyama being mysteriously creepy. So ending on this arc would feel like this season went out on a bit of a whimper and not have the emotional finality that it needs, considering what happened for the majority of this season. The second option would be to go another arc further and adapt all of the school festival. This option seems somewhat likely in terms of story beats, considering that it continues the emotional narrative left off at the end of HeroAca and gives it a final resolution to satisfy the audience. However, I still wouldn't consider this to be the ideal scenario, as it would put the adaptation rate at 2.46 to 1, much higher than the desired 2 to 1. Even if Season 4 were drawn out to 26 episodes with no filler, that still gives it a rate of 2.27 to 1. And considering how dense some of the information is in HeroAca, rushing through any parts of this arc would be a terrible idea. So 2 arcs is too little, but 3 arcs is too much. So what's the solution here? Well, this brings us to my final option, and the one I consider to be the best from both a pacing and narrative standpoint. Much like how Season 3 ended by teasing the beginning of the next arc, I believe that Season 4 could do the same. Most of HeroAca's arcs begin with a sort of cooldown period before the real meat of the new arc comes into play, such as with the introduction of the Big Three before the overhaul plot begins in HeroAca. In the manga format, the narrative intent of these moments is meant to be something like a transitional period, as the manga runs continuously instead of on a seasonal basis. As a result, when the manga is translated to a seasonal anime format, these moments can work either as points of finality to lead into the next arc, or as points of beginning for those arcs to start. As for where to cut off the school festival arc, the first 2 chapters would be a great place for Season 4 to end. This puts us at chapter 170, and those who have read the manga probably understand why I chose this point. It has a solid emotional resolution, though not as final as the end of this arc, that helps to settle some of the unease after HeroAca, so it makes for a much better ending spot than the Remedial Courses arc. Additionally, it also gives us a brief preview of the new duo of villains that star in the school festival arc, much in the same way Season 3 did with Overhaul. In regards to adaptation rate, this gives us 46 chapters to adapt, bringing the overall adaptation rate to 1.92 to 1. Again, it's still not exactly 2 to 1, but it's the closest that we can get without just cutting the story off somewhere in the middle. And while I still think they should be used as sparingly as possible, the addition of making just one of the hypothetical 24 episodes into a filler episode puts us exactly at 2 to 1. Of course, both of the 2 core seasons of HeroAca we already have been 25 episodes long, so that would be where the precedent lies, but 24 is still a possibility. Furthermore, this method also primes future seasons for hitting that adaptation rate sweet spot. If we go with option 3, that would give us 13 chapters of the school festival arc left to adapt for Season 5. The arc after that is the Pro Hero arc, which lasts for 10 chapters, giving us a total of 23 chapters, which if adapted across 12 episodes gives us another 1.92 to 1 rate. After that, we have the joint training arc spanning 24 more chapters, a perfect 2-to-1 across 12 episodes. If Season 5 were to be a 2-core season like Seasons 2 through 4, that gives us 47 chapters to adapt at a rate of 1.96 to 1 across 24 episodes, leaving off just before the current arc of the manga, the Meta Liberation arc. Now, in fairness, there is at least one drawback to option 3. If Season 4 were to end at chapter 170, that would mean that Season 5 starts right on the proper introduction to the villains of the school festival arc. And while they are strong antagonists, their personalities and actions are much more lighthearted than anything from Shie Hasaikai, especially considering how Overhaul is going to be introduced at the start of Season 4. Through no fault of the source material, Season 5 would feel like a step down from Season 3 simply because Shie Hasaikai is so commanding in its presence. Based on what I've read so far, starting Season 5 with the pro-hero arc might at least be somewhat comparable, so I could see the argument be made for adapting all of the school festival this season, though I would still prefer to save it for a later date just so we're not rushing through everything, and Season 3 started on a filler episode and most of us were fine with that, so I don't think this is as big of an issue as it appears to be. In any case, we won't know exactly how far Season 4 will go until it's actually over, but I still think it's fun to speculate on the matter because it gives you more insight into narrative structures and how stories are shifted across different mediums. So where do you think Season 4 will leave off? Leave a comment down below with your prediction, and if you're an anime-only viewer, leave a comment about what you think will happen in Season 4. Special thanks to Jan Rogalski, Rourketon Joing, Christine Seibert, Call Me Catlord, Ryan Johnson, Eugenio Mendoza, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.